The Freemason story of Andrew Jackson. Childhood and early life. Andrew Jackson was born on March 15, 1767, in the Waxhaws area, straddling the border of North and South Carolina. His parents, Andrew Jackson Sr. and Elizabeth Hutchinson Jackson, were of Scots-Irish descent. Tragically, Andrew's father died just days before his birth, leaving his mother to raise him in relative poverty. At the age of 14, Jackson lost his mother and two brothers to disease during the Revolutionary War, leaving him an orphan. Struggling through his early years, Jackson received sporadic education but developed a fierce spirit and determination. He eventually studied law in Salisbury, North Carolina, and began practicing law in Tennessee, where he gained prominence as a frontier lawyer and land speculator. Rise through politics. Jackson's ascent in politics was rapid. He was elected Tennessee's first representative in the U.S. House of Representatives and later served in the U.S. Senate. His military career took off during the War of 1812 when he commanded U.S. forces against the British and Native American tribes, culminating in the victory at the Battle of New Orleans. Controversies and presidency. Jackson was president from 1829 and 1837. He left office at the age of 70. As president, Jackson championed a strong executive branch and pursued an agenda focused on expanding the power of the presidency. He famously clashed with the National Bank and its president, Nicholas Biddle, leading to the dissolution of the bank. Jackson, a fervent advocate for states' rights and a fierce opponent of centralized banking, harbored a deep distrust of the National Bank. He believed that it concentrated too much power in the hands of a few elite individuals and favored wealthy interests over the common people. Jackson saw Biddle as the embodiment of this perceived corruption and fought vehemently against the bank's influence. Their clash intensified as Jackson was re-elected president in 1832, with a clear mandate to dismantle the National Bank. He vetoed the rechartering of the bank, a move that put him at odds with Congress and Biddle. Undeterred, Biddle used the bank's immense financial resources to try and discredit Jackson, hoping to undermine his presidency. As the tensions escalated, Biddle and Jackson engaged in a fierce battle for public opinion and governmental support. Biddle sought to demonstrate the bank's indispensability, while Jackson continued to rally his supporters, decrying the bank as an institution that served the elite at the expense of the common people. The conflict reached its climax when Jackson ordered the withdrawal of federal deposits from the National Bank, effectively crippling its operations. Biddle retaliated by restricting loans, causing economic turmoil in an attempt to pressure Jackson into relenting. However, Jackson remained resolute, standing firm in his belief that the bank's dissolution was necessary for the greater good of the nation. In 1836, as Jackson's presidency continued, the National Bank met its end. Its charter expired, and without federal support, it ceased to exist as a central financial institution. Biddle's efforts to save the bank had failed in the face of Jackson's determination to decentralize economic power. The dissolution of the National Bank marked a pivotal moment in American history, highlighting the ongoing struggle between centralized and decentralized power, as well as the enduring debate over the role of government in regulating the economy. His policy on Indian removal led to the forced relocation of Native American tribes. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 was signed into law by President Andrew Jackson and resulted in the forced relocation of several Native American tribes from their ancestral homelands in the southeastern United States to lands west of the Mississippi River, primarily in present-day Oklahoma. This act was highly controversial and had significant consequences. First being the Trail of Tears. The most infamous consequence was the Trail of Tears, which refers to the forced removal of the Cherokee, Muskogee, Creek, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw nations. Thousands of Native Americans were forcibly removed from their lands, resulting in a grueling journey characterized by harsh conditions, disease, and inadequate provisions. Many died during the journey due to exposure, disease, and malnutrition. Next was loss of land and culture. The Indian Removal Act led to the loss of ancestral lands and disrupted the cultural, social, and economic fabric of these Native American communities. The relocation forced them to abandon their homes, traditions, and established ways of life. Then a legal precedent was set. The act set a precedent for the forced removal of indigenous peoples in the United States, establishing a policy of Indian removal that continued for several decades. There was resistance and consequences. While some Native American tribes resisted relocation, the federal government used military force to enforce the act. The consequences of this relocation were devastating for many tribes, leading to the fracturing of communities and immense suffering. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 remains a dark chapter in American history, reflecting the government's disregard for the rights and well-being of Native American tribes in favor of expanding white settlement and land acquisition in the southeastern United States. Jackson's relationship with Freemason Davy Crockett. Andrew Jackson and Davy Crockett, the renowned frontiersman and later congressman, had differing political views. They were both Freemasons too. Crockett, while admiring Jackson's leadership, often disagreed with his policies, especially regarding Indian removal in the National Bank. Despite their differences, they shared some common ground, particularly in advocating for the interests of the frontier. Crockett's issues with Jackson ultimately cost him his re-election bid. Jackson did not feel like the punishment was enough. Freemasonry and membership. As mentioned earlier, Jackson was a member of the Freemasons. During this period, Freemasons had significant influence on American society and politics. Freemasonry was known for its secretive nature and its network of influential members, which included prominent figures from various fields. Part of this is what led to the Morgan Affair, which happened just a few years after Jackson's presidency. This episode can be found on our channel. Alamo and Sam Houston. During the Texas Revolution, Sam Houston, a fellow Freemason and military leader, led Texan forces against Mexican rule. The Alamo, a pivotal battle site, faced a siege by Mexican forces. Speculation exists regarding Jackson's decision not to send U.S. troops to assist Houston at the Alamo. Factors like political considerations, the complex situation in Texas, and a desire to avoid an international conflict might have influenced Jackson's choice. An opinion, since he knew Davy Crockett was there, also is rumored to have been a reason he did not send additional troops. Legacy. Andrew Jackson's presidency left a lasting impact on American politics, characterized by his commitment to expanding presidential power, controversial policies, and his role in shaping the nation's expansion. While revered for his military successes and a populist image, he's also criticized for policies that inflicted suffering on Native Americans. Jackson remains a complex figure in American history, celebrated for his leadership but debated for the consequences of his actions, prompting ongoing discussions about his legacy and the broader implications of his presidency on American society. What do you think of this Freemason? Was his attack on the National Bank justified? How about his attack and displacement of the Native Americans? What would happen today if a president tried this? Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe to the Old-Fashioned Masonic Podcast. A podcast where real Freemasons talk Freemasonry.